up, y'all? I said, what's up, y'all? Look at me when I'm talking to you, bro. Nah, I'm just messing with y'all, man. This is your boy Knockout Boxing 86 TV, and we in here. So check this out, y'all. Before we get going on our video, smash the like button for me. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Share the video. Turn on your notifications. And go follow me on Twitter at KOBoxing86 TV. And if you got a breakdown or a prediction you want me to do, knockoutboxing86 at yahoo.com is the email address. And please don't forget to check out our live shows. I'm live every single Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. We discuss the hottest topics in boxing. I'm also live every Friday night, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. That's our breakdown and prediction show, where we break down and we predict all the upcoming fights for that weekend. And then we also live on Sunday morning with the singing OG KQKC Boxing Network every Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, where we recap the weekend in boxing. But let's get to this video. So, shout out to the homie BFTB Boxing, right? BFTB Boxing, my brother, he asked me to do this video, and so as you can see by the title of the video, I'm going to go through my scorecard for the Gary Russell versus Mark Magsayo card. I feel like everybody's entitled to your opinion. We all see fights differently. We really do. But I feel like if you're able to show your work and the logic behind your opinion and why you do something, then that's what makes you a better content creator. That's what makes you a better fan. So this one is for everybody, so you can understand where Knockout is coming from, but specifically for my brother BFTB Boxing, where he wanted to know, why I scored the fight the way that I scored the fight. This ain't to change his mind. This ain't to change y'all mind. It's just so I believe we're responsible for showing why we think a certain way so that people know where we coming from. And so this is for my brother BFTB Boxing, man. So that's why y'all see him tagged in the description of this video and tagged in the title. So here it is right here. So when I was scoring this fight, right, I went back, I watched the fight 3 times after the initial time. So I've seen this fight a total of 4 times, and my scorecard hasn't changed. My scorecard hasn't changed. So I'm going to go round by round, explain to y'all my train of thought, why I scored the fight the way that I scored the fight. And, you let me know your score. What I want this to be is you let me know your score. If you hop in the comment section, don't just tell me, oh, I scored it for Russell, or I scored it for Magsayo, or I scored it a draw. Let me know what rounds, how you scored it, what you were looking at, why you were thinking that way, so that we can have a real dialogue and a real boxing conversation. It's okay to disagree and see the fight differently, because I believe this was a close-ass fight. Me, myself, personally, if they gave the fight to Gary Russell Jr., I wouldn't have an issue with that. I wouldn't have an issue with that. I think there were a lot of close rounds in this fight. If they scored the fight a draw, I wouldn't have an issue with that either. Again, the fight was close enough to where you can see it 6-6. Or the fact that they scored it to Mark Magsayo, I don't have a huge problem with that either. It just depends on what you were looking at, how you scored each round, and what your scorecard total to. But this is a fight that could have went either way. Very similar, not in style, because they were both much more busier, but it was very similar to Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castano, right? When you look at how you scored a fight, a bunch of rounds that could have went either way, to where if Castano got the W, if Charlo got the W, or if it was scored a draw, which it did end up being scored a draw, all of those outcomes are feasible outcomes where you could see kind of how it played out. But this is what I had. So round 1 and round 2, I scored the first 2 rounds from Magsayo. I thought he did a good job not allowing Russell to establish his distance. Gary Russell had trouble establishing his distance in those first 2 rounds. And Magsayo, actually, those are his most 2 successful rounds if you just want to look at effective punching, to me, because he countered Russell well. He showed that the speed gap wasn't as big as we thought it was in those 2 rounds. It got wide as the fight went on, but in those first 2 rounds, I thought he countered better. I thought he landed the much more significant shots, and he was in more control of the distance and the pace of the fight. So I gave him the first 2 rounds. Round 3 and round 4, I scored those clearly for Gary Russell Jr. He had both his hands at that time, and the first 2 rounds, I believe, was much more had to do with him being out of the ring 2 years, and it took him some time to calculate shit, get back used to being in a live fight. But then round 3, he came out, I felt like he totally controlled that round. I felt like Magsayo started missing a lot more in round 3 and round 4. I saw Gary countering him better. But then this is where it got tricky, because I believe in the middle of round 3, or it might have been round 4, he went to go check one of Magsayo's punches with his patented, counter left right hook, where he'll check your shit. You punching at him and check your shit. throw his right hook and try to pivot around on your ass. He tried to do that shit. He caught Magsayo in his left shoulder with the shit, and it bent Gary Russell's shoulder back, and he was already injured, and then boom, now the whole fight changed. He a one-on-one fighter, right? So I gave him round 3 and round 4. I also gave Gary Russell round 5. Because the punch stats, bro, I don't look at them hoes. You know what I'm saying? You go back and look at them, you'll see round 5. They'll tell you that Magsayo landed 20 punches and Gary Russell landed 4 punches. I don't know what the hell they be doing with the little thumb checker shit, all that thumb shit. I don't know what they be doing, but I gave that round clearly to Gary Russell Jr. I felt like he countered Magsayo. He didn't throw but like 1 or 2 jabs, but his left hand was working, you know, 1 piece, 2 piece to the body with the left hand. Just, I don't know why they show he only landed 4 punches. Like, I don't know what the hell that was about. But I gave round 5 to Gary Russell Jr. too. Again, the better work. Magsayo was busier, but he didn't land nearly enough to me to where it's one of those things that he should have got the nod in that round. So rounds 3, 2, 5, I scored to Russell. So he's up 3 rounds to 2 on my card right now. Round number 6, I scored that to Magsayo. I scored that to him based off of Gary Russell. This is when you could tell he really started to feel that injury. Like, this is the first round he ain't throw a jab at all, bro. This is the first round where he didn't throw a jab at all, and he hadn't adjusted to it yet, to the injury, in my opinion. I felt like through rounds 3 and 5, he was still off adrenaline. Yeah, he was hurt, but he was still kind of in this flow. But then round 6, shit started really bothering him because he ain't throw that shit at all in round 6. Like, no jab whatsoever. And Magsayo was able to take advantage just enough for me to give him round 6 and round 7 because he was busier in both of those rounds. I thought he landed enough clean body shots. And he touched Gary Russell barely with his right hand, but the body work, the aggression, and then judging the fight, like, I can't look at Gary Russell's injury and use that as I'm judging the fight. All I know is if you're scoring the fight objectively, Gary Russell wasn't as effective in round 6 and round 7. It looked like, if you're judging it, Magsayo's aggression got to him. Now, we all know that it was probably more so Gary Russell's injury that was getting to him in round 6 and round 7, but still more so Magsayo was the busier fighter in that round, and those rounds landed better body shots, in my opinion, and that aggression to me in round 6 and round 7 carried the day. Round 8 comes. I scored this one clearly for Gary Russell. The landed punches are much closer to me. Gary Russell did a much better job countering Magsayo, and this is the round I think he almost dropped him. Like, he stopped him in his tracks with a straight left hand, just because both fighters weren't that accurate and both fighters weren't throwing enough and doing enough work. That one punch alone, you go back and watch it, he threw a straight left right down the pipe. When they were like coming out of a corner, he threw a straight left right down the pipe on Magsayo. Magsayo was coming forward. That shit stopped him in his tracks, bro. Stopped him in his tracks. So I score round 8 for Gary Russell Jr. Then rounds 9, rounds 10, and rounds 11, I scored for Magsayo because Gary Russell Jr., he was countering in there, but he didn't land a clean punch like he did in round 8. So he had some counter punching in that little time frame that we're talking about between rounds 9 and round 11. But he just didn't let his hand, because shit, he didn't have hands. He didn't let his hand go enough for me to give him those rounds. Magsayo was still punching more. He was doing just enough body work. He was the one that was initiating the action, and 1 or 2 counter punches per round, you know, while the other guy's throwing double your work, triple your work, that's not enough for me to give you the round. So rounds 9 through 11, I scored those for Magsayo. Round 12, I thought was a clear Gary Russell round. I think round 8 was Gary Russell's best round. Round 12 was the second best round. He was busier in that round. Magsayo, I thought, let his foot off the gas. Maybe he felt like he had already won the fight or what have you. But I scored that clearly for Gary Russell Jr. Just off the strength of the counter punching again, him really going through it and landing left hands. And he was actually more aggressive. Like, he went after Magsayo in that 12th round and try to, you know, leave an impression in the judges. So I clearly gave him that 12. So if you break it all down, we got the first 2 rounds to Magsayo, the second 3 rounds to Gary Russell Jr., the next 2 rounds to Magsayo on my card, the 8th round to Gary Russell Jr., the next 3 rounds to Magsayo, and then the last round to Gary Russell Jr. So on my card, Gary Russell Jr. lost to Mark Magsayo 7 rounds to 5, or for a score of 115 to 113. So a couple things I want to say, and then we'll wrap it up. I think Gary Russell Jr. beat the shit out of Mark Magsayo if they both healthy. Like, I think Gary Russell showed me he a far better fighter than Mark Magsayo. You know, he kept the fight that close with one hand to where, like, if you telling me you believe Gary Russell Jr. won, I ain't gonna argue with you. That's how you saw the fight. And I think the main thing people are talking about rounds 9 through 11, I don't think those cost Gary Russell the fight. The first 2 rounds, in my opinion, cost him the fight because that's when he was at his healthiest. That's when he had both his hands. So I think if he didn't let Magsayo get those 2 rounds, if he didn't let Magsayo start off so good, I think he possibly could have took this fight or got a draw. Because if he would have just got one of those 2 rounds, he would have got a draw on my scorecard and probably more than likely got a draw on the judge's scorecard as well. So overall, I liked Magsayo's activity. I like the fact that, yes, he was missing a lot, but he was throwing 6 or 7 punches, landing 1 or 2. While Gary Russell Jr. was throwing 2 punches, landing 1. So he was connecting at a higher rate. He was much more accurate, but Magsayo was much more active. So I scored it for him. But if you scored it for Gary Russell Jr., that's cool, bro. Like, I'm not tripping, but I feel like it was a great question that BFTB asked me to do, which was to kind of explain my thought process and why I scored the fight the way I scored it. You know, this ain't for him or for any of you guys to agree or disagree with me. This is just so you can know how I view a fight. So when you hear my scorecards, you can know what I look for and what I look at. And I value activity. I value aggression. And I value you know, how many times you hit somebody. And to me, without looking at punch stats, because like I said, I got round 5 for Gary Russell clearly. That you go look at the punch stats, they're going to try to tell you that Magsayo landed 20 punches and Gary Russell only landed 4. I don't know what the hell they was looking at. I scored that shit for Gary Russell all day. All day. I don't know what they was looking at in round 5. So, you know, this ain't no punch stat shit for me, just based off my eye test, based off of what I view. I got Magsayo 115 to 113. But, you know, y'all let me know what y'all think, man. Give me your scorecards. Again, don't just tell me 7 rounds to 5 or give me a final score. You know, break that shit down for me. If you're going to take the time to comment, let me know what rounds you scored for Russell. Let me know what rounds you scored for Magsayo. I think the overall takeaway is, though, Russell's a better fighter, and Magsayo probably going to run for the hills because if he got Gary Russell smoke off of surgery or Gary Russell smoke when Gary Russell's 100% healthy, I say bet the house on Gary Russell Jr. if ain't nothing wrong with him because he showed even in loss or even in a close fight, he showed that he the better fighter, man, and that shit can happen. That shit can happen. It just wasn't his night. He had a lot of shit going against him, man, whether it be the business of boxing, with the PBC, that injury, 2-year layoff, all the family issues and shit, man. He just had a lot of shit going on, and he almost overcame that shit. So salute to him for being a soldier and being a warrior. And I'm looking forward to see what's next for him, man. I'm looking forward to see what's next for him. Y'all dudes need to wake up. Cobra up at 130. You need to fight that man. Devin Haney, he lost to a bum. Okay, cool. Should be easy work for you. If you want to keep calling his name, Tank Davis, DMV, stand up. What's up? You about to fight Rolly again? Like, why we can't get no Gary smoke? So, I need Gary Russell to get in big fights. I think he got a lot left in the tank. I don't want to hear shit talking about retiring. This man is got so much left to give the sport. A very, very skilled fighter. Just fell up short for shit that maybe some is in his control, some's out of his control. But hopefully he go take care of his body, take care of his shoulder, and come back better than ever, man. But that's my thoughts on it. That's my scorecard. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Comment down below, smash the like, subscribe to the channel, share the video, turn on your notifications. Go over there on Twitter and follow me on Twitter at KOBoxing86TV. And if you got a breakdown or prediction you want me to do, knockoutboxing86@yahoo.com is the email address. I appreciate everybody watching the video. Y'all be sure to check out our live shows too. Live on Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. Live on Friday night, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. And live Sunday morning with the singing OG, KQKC Boxing Network, Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. I appreciate y'all watching the video. Enjoy the rest of your day. And with that, we out of here. Peace, y'all.